Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to the afternoon read aloud. Today we're going to finish chapter 13. We read half of it. It's called Good Progress. Before I start, let's just remember where we left off. Mr. Zuckerman decided he wants to bring Wilbur to the fair and show him off because he thinks he has an amazing pig, a terrific pig, some pig, because Charlotte is writing messages in her web and the humans are amazed and they think it's a miracle. We know the animals are talking and trying to save Wilbur's life because pigs are used to make bacon and pork, and that was Mr. Zuckerman's plan, to have a Christmas feast, so he was going to kill Wilbur. But Charlotte said, "Wilbur, I won't let you die," and her plan was to write words in the web to make the humans think that Wilbur was a special pig that they couldn't eat. So her plan is working, but she's changing up the words, and the farm is changing because people are visiting it just to see the amazing pig. So that's where we left off. And now I will continue chapter 13. And ready? Here I go. Below the apple orchard at the end of the path was the dump where Mr. Zuckerman threw all sorts of trash and stuff that nobody wanted anymore. Here, in a small clearing, hidden behind young alders and wild raspberry bushes, was an astonishing pile of old bottles and empty tin cans and dirty rags and bits of metal and broken bottles and broken hinges and broken springs and dead batteries and last month's magazines and old discarded dish mops and tattered overalls and rusty spikes and leaky pails and forgotten stoppers and useless junk of all kinds, including a wrong-size crank for a broken ice cream freezer. Wow, that was a lot of description. He is just talking about the dump. And what character likes the dump? We know Templeton the rat likes the dump, and that's how they learn how to spell words, because Charlotte didn't know how to spell terrific. Templeton had to go find the word terrific somewhere in the dump and brought it back to Charlotte so she could spell it. So we know Templeton likes the dump. Templeton knew the dump and liked it. There were good hiding places there, excellent cover for a rat. And there was usually a tin can with food still clinging to the inside. Templeton was down there now, rummaging around. When he returned to the barn, he carried in his mouth an advertisement that he had torn out from a crumpled magazine. "How's this?" he asked, showing the ad to Charlotte. "It says crunchy. Crunchy would be a good word to write in your web." "Just the wrong idea," replied Charlotte. "Couldn't be worse. We don't want Zuckerman to think Wilbur is crunchy. He might start thinking about crisp, crunchy bacon and tasty ham. That would put ideas in his head. We must advertise Wilbur's noble qualities, not his tastiness. Go get another word, please, Templeton." The rat looked disgusted, but he sneaked away to the dump and was back in a while with a strip of cotton cloth. "How's this?" he asked. "It's a label off of an old shirt." Charlotte examined the label. It said, "Pre-shrunk." "I'm sorry, Templeton," she said, "but pre-shrunk is out of the question. We want Zuckerman to think Wilbur is nicely filled out, not all shrunk up. I'll have to ask you to try again." "What do you think I am, a messenger boy?" grumbled the rat. "I'm not going to spend all my time chasing down to the dump after advertisements." "Just once more, please," said Charlotte. "I'll tell you what I'll do," said Templeton. "I know where there's a package of soap flakes in the woodshed. It has writing on it. I'll bring you a piece of that package." He climbed the rope that hung on the wall and disappeared through a hole in the ceiling. When he came back, he had a strip of blue and white cardboard in his teeth. "There," he said triumphantly. "How's that?" Charlotte read the words. "With new radiant action." "What does that mean?" asked Charlotte, who had never used any soap flakes in her life. "How should I know?" said Templeton. "You asked for words and I brought them. I suppose next thing you'll want me to fetch is a dictionary." Together they studied the soap ad. "With new radiant action," repeated Charlotte slowly. "Wilbur," she called. Wilbur, who was asleep in the straw, jumped up. "Run around," commanded Charlotte. "I want to see you in action, to see if you're radiant." Now, Wilbur raced to the end of the yard. "Now back again, faster," said Charlotte. Wilbur galloped back. His skin shone. His tail had a fine, tight curl in it. "Jump in the air." cried Charlotte. Wilbur jumped as high as he could. Keep your knees straight and touch the ground with your ears, called Charlotte. Wilbur obeyed. Do a backflip with a half twist in it, cried Charlotte. Wilbur went over backwards, writhing and twisting as he went. Okay, Wilbur, said Charlotte, you can go back to sleep. Okay, Templeton, the soap ad will do, I guess. I'm not sure Wilbur's action is exactly radiant, but it's interesting. Actually, said Wilbur, I feel radiant. Do you? Said Charlotte, looking at him with affection. Well, you're a good little pig, and radiant you shall be. I'm in this thing pretty deep now. I might as well go to the limit. Tired from his romp, Wilbur lay down in the clean straw. He closed his eyes. The straw seemed scratchy, not as comfortable as the cow manure, which was always delightfully soft to lie in, so he pushed the straw to one side and stretched out in the manure. Wilbur sighed. It had been a busy day, his first day of being terrific. Dozens of people had visited the yard during the afternoon, and he had to stand and pose, looking as terrific as he could. Now he was tired. Fern had arrived and seated herself quietly on her stool in the corner. Tell me a story, Charlotte, said Wilbur as he laid waiting for the sleep to come. Tell me a story. So here's Wilbur. He is radiant. What does radiant mean? That means something's bright and lively if you're radiant. So that is the word Charlotte is going to write next in her web, and she was having him run around to see if he was radiant. And Templeton found that word on an advertisement for soap. So now Wilbur's asking Charlotte to tell him a story. And I'm thinking, as I read, as I always do, and as you should do, I'm thinking, man, Wilbur, she's busy. You really have to ask her to tell you a story? You know, you're tired, but you should be like a little more thoughtful. Poor Charlotte has been working really hard for you. Maybe just let her be instead of asking and demanding a story. He said it twice. Tell me a story. Like, you know, that's what I'm thinking. So Charlotte, although she too was tired, did what Wilbur wanted. She is so nice. Once upon a time, she began, I had a beautiful cousin who managed to build her web across a small stream. One day, a tiny fish leapt into the air and got tangled in the web. My cousin was very much surprised, of course. The fish was thrashing wildly. My cousin hardly dared tackle it, but she did. She swooped down and threw great masses of wrapping material around the fish and fought it bravely to capture it. Did she succeed? Asked Wilbur. It was a never-to-be-forgotten battle, said Charlotte. There was the fish, caught only by one fin, and its tail widely thrashing and shining in the sun. There was the web, sagging dangerously under the weight of the fish. How much did the fish weigh? Asked Wilbur eagerly. I don't know, said Charlotte. There was my cousin, slipping in, dodging out, beaten mercilessly over the head by the wildly thrashing fish, dancing in, dancing out, throwing her threads and fighting hard. First she threw a left around the tail, the fish lashed back. Then a left to the tail and a right to the midsection, the fish lashed back. Then she dodged one side and threw a right and another right to the fin. Then a hard left to the head, and while the web swayed and stretched. Then what happened? Asked Wilbur. Nothing, said Charlotte. The fish lost the fight. My cousin wrapped it up so tight it couldn't budge. Then what happened? Asked Wilbur. Nothing, said Charlotte. My cousin kept the fish for a while, and then, when she got good and ready, she ate it. Tell me another story, begged Wilbur. Oh, man! So Charlotte told Wilbur the story of the fish that got caught in the spider web. And I'm wondering, did she make that up? I think she made it up. So she's making up a story to tell Wilbur before he goes to sleep, and then Wilbur, not satisfied. He wants another story. Again, I'm starting to get a little annoyed with Wilbur. Leave Charlotte alone, Wilbur. All right, we're almost done. Let's see what happens. Tell me another story, begged Wilbur. So Charlotte told him about another cousin of hers who was an aeronaut. What's an aeronaut? Asked Wilbur. A balloonist, said Charlotte. My cousin used to stand on her head and let out enough thread, remember we're talking about a spider, to form a balloon. Then she'd let it go and be lifted into the air and carried upward on the warm wind. Is that true? Asked Wilbur, or are you just making it up? It's true, replied Charlotte. I have some very remarkable cousins. And now, Wilbur, it's time you went to sleep. Sing something, begged Wilbur, closing his eyes. So Charlotte sang a lullaby, while crickets chirped in the grass and the barn grew dark. Look at that language. While crickets chirp, we're using our senses. It's getting darker. Charlotte said go to bed. Wilbur wants a song, but Charlotte's going to do it for him, of course. This was the song that she sang. Sleep, sleep, my love, my only, deep, deep in the dung in the dark. Be not afraid and be not lonely. This is the hour when the frogs and thrushes praise the world from the woods and the rushes. Rest from care, my one and only, deep in the dung and the dark. In the dung is the manure. My great Charlotte voice. So she sang him a little lullaby. That is so nice of her. But Wilbur was already asleep. When the song ended, Fern got up and went home. That's the end of our chapter. So Fern was there the whole time. Wilbur was tired because he had to look terrific all day. It seems like Wilbur doesn't really love it that much. Charlotte is the nicest character. She's doing all of this for Wilbur. So we really like Charlotte. And I'm thinking, Wilbur, you have to be a little bit more independent and stop asking so much of Charlotte because she must be tired. So I'm getting a little frustrated with Wilbur. I wonder how you feel. Keep on watching. Thank you for watching. And I will read the next chapter tomorrow.